Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Learn with Jason. Today on the show, we have Sébastien Lorber, and now it's on the next episode. Okay, my scenes are
Yeah.
rebelling, everybody, and I don't know why. It's now showing me the next episode, which I'm struggling with a little bit. I don't know how or why it's doing that, but we're just gonna. I guess we're just gonna live with it because otherwise I'm gonna spend the whole episode debugging this. So this is not Jessica Sachs. Jessica's on next time. This is Sébastien Lorber, and Sébastien, I apologize for the technical chaos that's happening right now. Um, how are you today?
I'm fine, thank you. Really happy to be there because I actually know you for a very long time.
Yeah, I
So,
so thank you for taking the time. Before we get started, can you maybe just give folks who are unfamiliar with your work a quick overview of who you are, what you do?
I'm a freelancer. I'm working with Facebook on Docusaurus for the last almost 3 years now, and I'm also the publisher of the This Week in React newsletter, which is a newsletter that I started 2 years ago, and I try to keep the senior React developers up to date on a regular basis, and it's working quite well. I have maybe 16,000 follow subscribers now, so it's growing fast, and slowly it's becoming a sustainable project. So I'm quite happy to do that on the side.
Excellent. I am very quickly throwing together like the worst little overlay thing to try to fix this so that people at least know what your name is. I am again kind of I'm a little embarrassed at how silly this is being for me. So um, yeah, let's just gonna move this up a little bit, and I don't have a quick. There's probably a great like shape here that I could. We're gonna use a basic black. We're gonna make that much smaller than it is now, which will allow me to cover this up. And then, Jesus, this is awful. All right, it's you know what, this is good enough. All right, chat. That's how the sausage is made, I guess. So Sébastien, I am really excited to have you on because we're talking about something that I have kind of lightly used in the past, but haven't really had a chance to use heavily. And you just had a major release of it. So you are talking today about Docusaurus 2.0. So for folks who aren't familiar, can you give us a bit of a background on what Docusaurus is? Like why what is it? How do people use it? Why would you choose it? All those good things.
Yeah, so the idea of Docusaurus is that I wasn't there at that time, but at Facebook, they have a lot of internal projects and open source projects. They need documentation for all of them, and somehow they needed to document all of them, but it was a core because they had a Jekyll template, which is a static site generator, and they copy pasted the same Jekyll template over and over again for each project they had. So at some point, it was not very scalable because anytime they wanted to add some new features to the template, it was complicated to upgrade all the projects and keep them up to date. So they wanted to create a tool that permits to focus on the content. So you just write markdown files and tweak a few things and configuration files and CSS and things like that. And then you have a doc site that looks great, is accessible, is performant, and has a great user experience and
Hmm.
all the features that a documentation site needs. So the idea is really I like to compare Docusaurus to the law of where you spend less time and you get a great outcome from the tool you use. And at the same time, it's extensible enough. So if you want to do the more advanced case, you can still implement them with Docusaurus.
Yeah. That is, I mean, I feel like that's sort of the holy grail for any project, right? Is you want it to be so easy to get started, as close to one click as you can to get started, start writing and have something
Yeah.
up on the internet. And at the same time, you don't want to remove capabilities from developers who want to do more advanced use cases, who want to dig deeper in and customize and try new stuff and add, flashy
Yeah.
features. And so how have you approached striking that balance? Like I guess how do you think about that when you're approaching a feature, an API design, something like that? How are you balancing the need for it to be really easy for somebody who doesn't want to write code, but still very customizable for somebody who does want to write code?
So for me, the idea is that we try to have strong opinions that make sense out of the box and try to infer what the user feels is intuitive. And so we have conventions that make things easy, and somehow it's the conventions that already exist. For example, when people write documentation on GitHub,
Mm.
for example, the idea is that, for example, you already have a documentation on GitHub as Markdown files, and you should be able to bring all that documentation to a Docusaurus folder and just launch a command, and it should be able to bring you some site. Sometimes you have to do some tweaks to make it work, but the idea is that it should be quite easy to get started, particularly if you already have some Markdown files that you want to publish online.
Mm.
And
Mm-hmm.
for the more advanced features, I think the idea for me is to do like a bit I don't remember the name. It was maybe the extensible web manifesto, which is basically
Mm.
the idea to focus first on low level primitives that make sense and that we know will not be refactored later because they are good enough. And then if it makes sense to make it easier for the users to create some kind of shortcuts and presets on top of it so that it gets easier to use these low level features. But for me, the idea is somehow to create many escape hatches everywhere so that no use case is impossible. Some use case will not be very straightforward, but they should be possible no matter what the user is trying to do. So the idea is to add the primitives that unlocks everyone, even if those primitives are not the most straightforward to use. I try
Mm.
to build on top progressively, but not. We don't start from a specific use case. We try to find primitives that make sense for everyone somehow.
Great. Yeah. No, I think I do like that as an approach. And, it feels like a good way to give someone a jump start without removing their autonomy, right? Like, I think that's a
Yeah.
really nice way to approach that. Um, so let's talk a little bit about the 2.0 release. So for Docusaurus 2.0, you've got a lot of new features. So what are some of the highlights of what's coming in 2.0?
So first of all, Docusaurus is a static site generator, and the first version was based on React, but it was not like Next.js and Gatsby. It only used React as as a server template. Somehow it was just used on the server, and React was never loaded on the client. And
Mm.
it was not a single page application. So we only used it as a server templating language. So the version 2 is quite different because this time it's more like all the other React frameworks. It will iterate React on the client, and you will have a single page application navigation. So this is one of the main difference, and also other difference that we have is we try to make it more modular. So we have a plugin system which enables the community to create their own plugins, and we made the customizations much more possible. The first version was more like a monolithic version where you
Mm.
can't customize a lot of things outside the CSS of a site. But the CSS is quite limited. Sometimes you need more advanced customizations, like modifying the DOM structure of the elements that we render and things like that. So in Docusaurus, you can override basically everything. Some things are not really safe to override because we consider those as implementation details, but in any case, you can always override the implementation details and implement all the React components the way you want.
Gotcha. Okay, great. Well, this is a very like I'm excited to dig in, and so maybe the easiest thing to do is just to actually start building. Does that sound like the right call?
Yeah, I think we can give it a try.
All right, let's do it. So I am going to very quickly copy my little hacky thing. I'm going to move us over into pair programming. I am going to just what a nightmare with my tech today. Okay, here we go. Yeah, we're gonna save that. We're gonna reload this page. It's gonna show us the wrong details. Oh, it's just killing me. It's just absolutely killing me. I'm gonna paste this in, and we're gonna put that over the top here. I'm gonna put this over the top here so that it is somewhat legible, and we're gonna call that good enough. All right. So this episode, like every episode, is being live captioned. So let me pull over the details here. So if you would like to follow along with the live captions, you can see the episode on Twitch. Click that closed caption button that is right there on the Twitch player to see them. And that is being made possible through the support of our sponsors, Netlify, NX, New Relic, and Pluralsight, all kicking in to make this show more accessible to more people, which I really do appreciate. So thank you all for kicking in to make the show better for everybody else. We are talking today to Sebastien. So that is Sébastien Lorber. And nope, that's I spelled it
No,
wrong.
this
I
is
spelled it wrong. There. That's the one. So you can follow Sebastien on Twitter if you want your Docusaurus and other news. I know you're doing This Week in React, which is a cool newsletter that I'm actually just going to direct shout out to folks if I can get it to load.
Thanks.
There it is. Go get on that newsletter and learn what's coming in the React space. Outside of that, we're talking about Docusaurus. So I'm going to make the screen a little bit bigger. I'm going to head over to the Docusaurus website here. We'll drop that in the chat. And then I am at the end of my knowledge. What should I do next?
What should you do next? So we have two possible ways. I think one great way to get started with Docusaurus is to try it in your browser. So we have a subdomain, a domain like docusaurus.new that you can, I think it's the same link. So when you enter docusaurus.new in your browser, you should lead to this page. And we have a Code Sandbox and StackBlitz playground. So for example, if you have Chrome, I think you have, you can try the StackBlitz playground. One on.
So I'm in Arc.
Yeah, this one,
which is still Chromium based. So we'll see if this works.
I don't know.
We'll try it. If it doesn't work, good sign so far.
For people that don't know, StackBlitz is a technology that permits to run Node.js frameworks inside your browser, so you don't have to install anything. It's a quite convenient way to get started. It's not like Code Sandbox. I think Code Sandbox is using remote Docker containers, and StackBlitz is using some quite novel WebAssembly technology to make it possible to run frameworks like Docusaurus inside your browser. So what we load here in StackBlitz is the hello world of Docusaurus. Somehow it's the first thing that you get when you initialize a project locally. I just wanted to show you that it's easy to give it a try, but maybe we should move later to something local because it will be a bit more reliable. This technology works fine most of the time, but sometimes there are some glitches. So
Gotcha.
I like it, for example, for contributors to submit a repro for the issues, but I wouldn't work for 5 hours inside this for now. Maybe next year.
Gotcha. All right, so we are going to go back to Docusaurus, and I'm assuming get started is going to show me how to create a new one. This looks right.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm going to go into my terminal here. I'm going to hit npx create Docusaurus, and I'm going to do Docusaurus. Oh, geez, I can't spell today. Docusaurus 2.0, or we'll do Docusaurus 2, and then I'm going to prefix with LWJ because I probably can't deploy something like that. And then Classic is Classic the theme?
Classic is the theme, yeah. I think you can omit it actually. You can just type the first part of the command and we will ask you to fill the rest. So
Nice.
even I think you can, for example, type yarn create Docusaurus and that's all. But there are some things like npx and yarn, and according to the versions that you are using of Node.js, it's not exactly the same command. So we choose the safest command that works for everyone, even if it's a bit longer. But hopefully in the future we will be able to shorten a bit this command because it's not really easy to remember.
Oh, this is cool. So so Classic is probably what we were looking at on StackBlitz. Is that correct?
Yeah, this is the thing you should choose because the other ones are there are not a lot of third-party terms that you can use. So and Facebook is for Facebook employees, so it's almost the same, but you have maybe you can use a TypeScript. I don't know if you choose TypeScript.
I did choose TypeScript.
Okay.
This is growth. I think 6 months ago I would have been like, "Ooh, not TypeScript. That'll slow us down." But I'm not going to say I'm good at TypeScript, but I am becoming functional. Growth.
Oh no,
yes,
it's
Vinny.
slow.
It is growth. Yeah. So yeah, this will take us a moment. Let me make sure I'm not like.
Maybe you can try some things in the StackBlitz window in the meantime.
Let's see this. Here we go. It's moving now. So we are gonna move into the Docusaurus, and then we already have our dependencies. It looks like so. Yes, I can run an npm start. And back out here, open it up, and look at that. We now have a running site. Okay, so this is cool. So maybe we can start with a bit of a tour. So for somebody who's never seen Docusaurus before, yeah, Vinny, my overlays are broken today. So in post we will edit this to have the right title, but unfortunately right now it's showing the next episode and I don't know why. I'm gonna have to fix that after the show. In the meantime, sorry. So all right, so let's do a little tour of Docusaurus. For somebody who's looking at this the first time, what are the major features I should be looking at, and kind of where should I be directing my eyes?
So what I did for Docusaurus, I wanted really that the getting started experience is really easy to understand. So when you initialize the site, you have the tutorial inside the site. So you just have to click on the button in the middle, and normally if you follow the instructions, it should be fine. I try to make it really short and just playful. Nothing complicated. You just have to to follow the instructions.
Okay, so we did this. We set up a new site.
Yeah.
We've started it. We're running. Great. So then we can drop through into the basics. So we can create pages and documents or groups of pages. Okay. We've got a blog. So if we go over to the blog, these are our blog posts.
Yeah.
That's great. Okay. So back in here, looking at the basics, we've got markdown features good, and then we can deploy the site. All right. So excellent. I will probably lean on you to be my tutorial here. So I probably won't jump through this one, but let's dive in and say, like, we want to. I don't know what should we do first here. Should we be
So we have free plugins in Docusaurus that we call content plugins. So those plugins are responsible from reading Markdown files on your Docusaurus site and creating routes and pages for your site. So we have one plugin for the landing pages. For example, if you want just one individual page that is completely different from the other, you can create this page in Markdown or in React.
Okay.
We have the Docs plugin that permits to create groups of pages that are related through a version and a sidebar and things like that. So you can navigate from one doc to another. For example, when you look at the tutorial, you are in the Docs plugin because those are sets of documents, and you can navigate backward and forward from one document to another. And we also have features on top of that, like versioning, that permits to version a set of documentation across time. So this is great. For example, if you want to have an iOS or an Android SDK, and both have different versions and things like that, you can do that with Docusaurus. So,
Okay.
and we have the blog plugin that permits to create the blog, all the blog posts and the paginations and things like that. So we can start maybe simple with the landing pages. So what I can suggest you is to go to the to your IDE and to create some Markdown file inside the SRC. You can look maybe at the folder structure. I can explain to you how it is.
Give me just 1 second. It's gonna be. I'm gonna just suspend that for a second. I'm gonna git init because otherwise VS Code will keep everything dimmed on us. So.
Yeah.
Okay. Now. Oh no, I was almost there. One more time. Here we go. Now we're gonna foreground that, and here we go. All right. Now we can actually see the components in here. So we've got a source directory. We've got the blog is its own folder. The docs are their own folder.
Yeah.
And
you have we have other little things. Maybe I can explain to you what each file is.
Yeah.
So the blog folder is for Markdown files for the blog. We have an authors.yaml that permits to register regular authors of your blog. If you want, for example, to have to just reference them by a key, you can do that. So it permits to avoid copy pasting and editing multiple blog posts if the author informations change over time. We have the docs folder, which is for the documentation of I mean.
So I'm actually gonna pause you real quick just to show how cool this is. So in the authors.yaml, you define an author, and then you can refer to the author here, but you can also explicitly declare an author if it's somebody who's like a one-off guest author. They're not going to be on the blog, more than the once. That's really cool. That's very handy to be able to do that.
You can do both at the same time. For example, you can have some regular authors. I mean, you can create a blog post with someone else and be a regular author of the blog post. So you use yourself, and then the second author can be in line if he is not a regular author of the blog. So you have the freedom to reference by key or to reference or to fill all the details of the author.
Really nice. Yeah, that's really handy. So if you were going to do that, just to make sure I understand, because YAML is hard, you would do something like this, and then you would add like that.
Yeah, I think it should work. Maybe take a look at.
Yeah, let's try. Right, we got the site running. We can just go and look at this. So which one did I
I'm
just
also not sure of my. I think it's the last
first
one
blog
that you
post?
created. It should,
There it
yeah,
is.
so I think it should. It seems to work.
Great. Yeah, okay. So then we will undo that and back it goes. All right. So that's very cool. I mean, little stuff like that is just nice because every time I build a blog, I'll kind of talk myself into building my own front matter setup, and then I don't do things like pagination. Like if you look at my blogs now, they're just infinite lists because I don't build pagination. I don't have these little shortcuts for things like authors. And granted, for me, it's my blog, so I don't have anybody but me on there.
Yeah.
But like I never take the time to build this stuff, and so it's so nice when a tool just hands you a suite of nice things like this, so that you can just build, and it's not at the expense of like jank. Like if you go look at my custom rolled blog, it's just jank.
Yeah.
Okay, so I cut you off as we were talking about the blog, but so we've got the blog plugin here. We put our markdown in here. We've got the authors.yaml. How does is this just magic? Like if I create a blog folder, Docusaurus knows it's there, or do I have to specifically target folders with different types of Docusaurus plugins?
By default, Docusaurus will know that this folder exists, but this is thanks to the configuration file. If you open docusaurus.config.js, you will see that there is a config file.
Mm-hmm.
And this is the thing where you add all the metadata of your site. By default, we have something that we call a preset, which loads the free content plugin that we provide by default. So the docs, the blog, and the pages. I don't see the pages. Maybe because there is no configuration to provide. So this is quite simple. So you don't often customize the pages plugin because you just have to drop a file in the pages folder, and then it should work and create the appropriate page for you. So there is no fancy config options for this one.
Gotcha.
So you can add your site metadata there. You can, for example, add your site title and the URL where it will be hosted once you know.
Mm-hmm. Okay,
And
so let's do this. We can keep that, and then we'll have it as like LWJ Docusaurus 2, and that's going to be .netlify.app is where we will deploy this today. That seems okay. And then this would be like learn with Jason. The project name is going to be Docusaurus 2.
So just these informations are only required if you want to deploy to GitHub Pages, which
GitHub Pages. Got it.
I prefer Netlify, but but the thing is, many people still want to use a host that doesn't have server redirects and all those things. So I don't understand them, but
Got it.
this is life.
So can I delete this then if I'm not using it?
Yeah. If you don't plan to try the deployment to GitHub Pages, you can delete this. But just want to mention that if you want to deploy to GitHub Pages, we have an official CLI to make it easier. So you just have to run a command, and it will build the site and deploy to your GitHub Pages of your repository.
Really
the only
nice.
thing that is a bit complicated is to set up the Git permissions so that you can actually push to the branch. So this is a bit always a bit complicated with the CI to set up. There are multiple ways to do this. That it's easier to use Netlify.
Got it. Okay. And so then down here, this is we're using the classic theme, and then we've set up the docs. So there's a sidebar path, which we should talk about in a minute. This edit URL, which is really cool. And so does this mean like if we want to edit this page, so looking at this one, going down, there's an edit this page link, which is extremely cool.
This is it.
Now, for me to change this to be mine, and in fact, maybe we should just deploy this real quick. So let's go to GitHub. We'll go to Learn with Jason. I'm going to go in here. We've already got this one set up, but let's git add all, and we'll do a git commit work in progress, building out a Docusaurus 2.0 site. I'm going to GitHub repo create, and we're going to push an existing repository, which is this one here. I want the repository to live on my org, so we'll give it the org name, and we'll make it public. Yes, I want to add a remote, and we want to push. And there it goes. Okay, so now if I click this, it's going to open up our repo, right? So if I want to make this editable, do I just grab this link, or do I grab something else?
This is just a link. So what we provide is somehow the editor is just a prefix that we will append with the final path of your Markdown file. So you can point to whatever you want. It can be GitHub, it can be the file in edit mode, it can be the file in read mode if you want, and we also allow you to provide a function if you have more advanced needs, like for example, this Markdown file should go to GitLab and this one should go to GitHub. It's also possible to do that. But the simplest is to just maybe replace the project and organization like you do, and I think it should work fine.
Okay. And so now this, if I click this, obviously this is going to take me where I want to go, which is into the set. So I'm going to save this. I'm going to come back out here where looks like this is set up. So if I come down here, then it is, I think. Oh no.
Oh.
Doesn't contain the docs. Oh, I know what I did wrong. I included the docs suffix and I shouldn't have done that. Yeah. So I can leave this out. All right. And then I'm going to go back to Arc, close this one, and let's try again. And there it goes.
Yeah.
That's really nice. So, okay. So that config is pretty straightforward. This also feels like we can do the same thing. So we've got our edit URL here. And now our blog will have an edit option as well. Is that correct? So if I go here and edit this page, it takes me over to the blog. And now you can make a suggested edit to the blog. All right.
Yeah.
So we're cooking with gas here. Like, we got this thing up on the internet. It is actually functional. And if you, let's see, if you want to check it out, chat, you can head over and look at the work in progress here, kind of follow along as we're building things. Okay, so I'm with the config. Let's go down a little bit to the theme config and maybe talk me through a little bit of what we're looking at here.
So the navbar is the top the top of the layout of Docusaurus. So the theme config is what permits you to somehow configure the layout and things that are visual on your site, while the plugin config is for how we read Markdown files and compute some properties like the edit URL and things like that. So here you can change your things to your infos, and you can change the top level bar of Docusaurus. Here you are in the mobile view, so it's a bit more complicated to to see it. Unfortunately, you have to expand. This is also, yeah. So now you see the nav bar at the top.
Mm-hmm.
If you are on the mobile version, you will have to open the hamburger menu to be able to see the navbar items. But it's better maybe for the demo to show the desktop version. So you can add links to the navbar. You can add we have different types of navbar items that you can use. The simple one is a link, but we also have things like a version dropdown. We have a local dropdown if your site is translated. Normally, you have the theme switch that is here by default, and if you enable the search plugin, you will have a search bar too being displayed in the corner of the navbar.
And so maybe that's a good like thing to try here right out of the gate. If I want to enable search, do I need to do I have to go set up an Algolia account or anything like that, or is this just I add the plugin and I'm good?
So the integration of Docusaurus is the main integration is with Algolia. So you have to create an account to Algolia or Doc Search. For example, many of open source sites are eligible to have a Doc Search account for free.
Yeah.
Otherwise, I think you have to pay. So, but there are some local search plugins that are not official, but many people use them. So you can choose. We generally use Algolia, but if you don't want an account or you don't want to pay or you are not eligible for a free account, you can also use a local search plugin.
Very cool.
Normally, maybe you can try it. You don't have a doc search account, but maybe you can try it. You can just, I think, in the config you have a preset.
In the config, I have a preset here.
Yeah, let me check the doc. I don't know exactly which key is. Yeah, so there is theme config somewhere.
Theme config here.
Yeah, so at the same level as navbar, you can add a new attribute called Algolia. Algolia, and you open the object, and there is an app ID that you can add. App ID, yeah, the second one, and you add some your Algolia app account, and there is an API key, the second one, I think, and if I'm not wrong, the search bar should appear, hopefully.
Okay, so this will break because we don't have a search key in here.
You have to have a search key. Maybe I can give
Algolia
the
app ID
search key.
It is not allowed to be empty. I mean, that's okay. If we
we can add one character. This is just a validation problem, I think.
Let's see.
Maybe there is another thing.
API key is not allowed to be empty. And so it is now. Index name is required. Okay, we can add an index name.
Yeah, I think it's the index name, yeah.
Oh, can't resolve theme. Oh, I don't think we didn't add the search page, right? So we would need to install this.
I think it's maybe reload your browser because I think it's there are some things where you have to restart your server maybe. So I'm not sure exactly, but there are some cases where the hot reload doesn't reload the plugins, and when you change too much things in the config and add and remove plugins, it's better to restart, I think.
Got it. Back on the home page, and there is our search bar. So this is broken because we don't have valid data in there.
Yeah.
But pretty dang cool that just works. It's got the Command K shortcut. Like, that's slick. And doc search, if you haven't used Algolia doc search, is pretty pleasant to set up. It's free for any doc site. You got to make sure you take the right things. Let's see. Okay, sorry, I saw a joke in the chat that I wasn't sure if was like somebody actually got hacked. um, okay, so yeah, so doc search is very very cool. We can do a whole episode later on how to set up a doc search. For now, I'm going to turn this off so that we don't have a broken thing in here. But I am really impressed with how quickly this stuff just kind of works. It's really really nice that whenever you just add the right config, then the right thing shows up, and that is a very pleasant experience for me. Cool. Okay. So if I want to customize this homepage, where would I go to do that?
So you can go to the pages folder, and then you have index.tsx, and this is just a React component. So basically, you can do whatever you want if you are a React developer, because
Sure.
this is React code. So, but if you are not a React developer, you can create. I mean, yeah, we are customizing things, but I didn't tell you how to create pages. For example, there is
True.
the pages folder. If you want, you can create another file like json.md. You can create a page with a Markdown file, and you can write your Markdown file, and there will be a page at /JSON, for example.
Okay.
There is no link to it, so you have to go with the browser, but it should work.
Oh, cool. So it's smart enough to auto theme, like to wrap the page in there. I thought I was going to have to like do some markdown front matter to set a layout and stuff like that. But this is really clever. So looking at this, oh, and it already pulled the title across. How did it do that? It just knows to grab the H1. Like
it takes the H1 from your page, and it is able to put it as the title of the page and things like that. So
that's
you have
slick. That's
the
a
right
nice touch.
metadata by yeah. It has a canonical URL and many other metadatas by default. So you don't have to do many things. You just have to write the content of the page. And you can also customize some things, but you can just write a simple Markdown files this way.
Yeah, this is excellent.
So you have the choice to create Markdown pages or React pages. Of course, if you create React pages, you have more flexibility. So for the landing page, I think it's better to have a React landing page and try to polish it a bit. And if you want to style it, you can use CSS modules and things like that out of the box, or a plain CSS file. I think a CSS module is a nice way to get started, because it doesn't involve a very complex setup. I think it's a nice default to style any React app today. So it's not too opinionated. And
yeah, I feel really strongly that if you have not adopted like if you're not joining a team that already has adopted a styling format, like, you know, if you join a team and everybody uses Tailwind, just use Tailwind. But if you're starting a project from scratch, like there's less and less reason to bring in a custom thing like Sass or Less when you can plug in something like modules, because they give you this really wonderful, like, the CSS is scoped, which solves the major complaint about vanilla CSS. It just works in so many modern frameworks where you import styles like this, and it lets you get to skip an abstraction, which I think is maybe my favorite part of it, where you're just writing, like, this is valid CSS. You can put this anywhere and it just works. And when you pull it in here, you just have to know the class names and it just works. And like, that to me is such a powerful thing when, you know, you're jumping into a new tool or you're trying to build something. Is like, it's just one less thing on the pile that you have to keep in mind is slightly different from the web standard.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's somehow the the borrowing technology that is quite safe to adopt for any project. So unless everyone is convinced that Tailwind is better and everyone is productive, this one is maybe a bit more verbose, but it gets things done. So it works.
Yeah, yeah, it's really really nice. All right, so we've created a plain markdown page.
Yeah.
Let's talk about how you've got some cool stuff going on in this tutorial where we've got like these grouped sections in the sidebar, and it looks like we can do something custom with the sidebar. We haven't looked in this sidebars JS yet. So maybe let's talk a little bit about that as I'm starting to get more advanced in my documentation. I want to add collections of docs. I want to add, anything custom to docs. It looks like we've got some cool things here, like these buttons that show subpages and stuff. Let's dive in.
So we have a docs folder where there are some the docs of the tutorial that you are currently browsing. So maybe you can take a look at this folder in your IDE.
Okay, let's go over to, here's the basics. That's where we are now. So we've got, it looks like I'm going to assume because of the underscores that this is kind of a magic file. Then we have Markdown and MDX down here, which is nice. So, okay, let's pop one of these open. The one we're looking at right now is create a page. So here's create a page.
So
sidebar.
What you cannot. Yeah, so the idea is that by default, Docusaurus will try to infer what you want to do from the folder structure, like most frameworks now do. We try to compute the URL of a document from its path on the file system, and you can customize some things with the front matter. This is the default behavior on the template, but you can also open the sidebars.js file at the root of your site, and you can be explicit. For example, if you want to have control over the sidebar of your documentation without being correlated to the file system structure, you can also be very explicit and register each doc one by one to the sidebar. But I think it's quite convenient to be able to infer things from the file system structure. So when you move one doc from one place to another, it just adapts the documentation at the same time and put the folder in the right sidebar category.
Got it. Okay. So I want to try this. I'm gonna make a collection called How to Boop, and we will we'll just make a little thing here, and then we'll make another one that says boop it, and I'm gonna make that MDX, and I think that's gonna be good enough. So I want this to show up. And look, it's already kind of doing what we want, which is pretty dope. So we have the pieces. Now, these aren't, we don't have titles, so they're just using file names. They're not in the right order, but I saw in here that I can control the order. So I'm going to grab this and do one of these, one of these. Okay, so we're getting closer now. How do I, is this category JSON how I would customize this?
The categories for the category is like the folder. So it's the metadata of your folder, and it configures the metadata of the sidebar category, and you can also define a more beautiful label and a position for the top level position of the category. And there are other things, for example, this is another thing that you can add.
Okay. So now we've got how to boop, right? And I should do the order so that it actually shows up like without breaking the other one. So here we go. So that's one. Great. Oh, and then we've got this shows up here. And I love that it shows this this kind of auto-generated thing. That's really nice. so then going into one of my pieces here, I would like to, let's see, step 1, locate a snoot. And it just picks it up. Oh, that's so slick that it does that. And then we can go out here and do, let's go to Unsplash, get something that won't get me in trouble for using. Get one of these, and perfect. We're going to copy the image address. Probably look like this. Is it gonna let me do like the hot in bed? It is. Ha. Okay. So we've got our step 1, and then we've got our step 2. Okay, now I made this MDX for a reason, because I want to have a little like try it.
Yeah.
So to do that, I'm gonna need your help, because I've never added MDX to Docusaurus before, and this right now is not gonna work because this component doesn't exist.
Yeah. It doesn't exist, but actually with MDX you can eventually declare it inline. So this is not a widely known MDX trick, but for example, you can export it from this document and it should be able to render.
So I'm going to do one of these, and for now, we'll just return a to-do. Wow, look at that go. Okay, so then we can do a little, can I just like use state from React? Is this going to work? This is going to be fun.
I think it works. I think Prettier doesn't like it reformats a bit because it doesn't like too much, but yeah, maybe it will work.
Let's try. We'll find out. Okay, so we've got.
Yeah. This is not something that I would recommend for a real documentation site, but I think it should work. Yeah.
Cool. All right. So maybe we can do this, and then you can help me refactor it into something that is a little less goofy. But we will start with you. We'll do boops is greater than 0. Okay, and then I can get rid of this, close this, and then down here we want a button, and the button will be an on click that will give us a set boops to be. We'll just that'll serve our purposes. So I'm gonna do it like that. Oops, I can't write code. Okay. And there we go. We now have usable usable stuff, and we can even do like a button on click, set boops to 0, and now we have a reset. What did I miss? Oh, right.
The end, yeah.
So boop it, reset it. Boop it, reset it. And now we have interactive docs, everybody. And that took me, it took me longer to write the JSX than it did to configure anything else, which is pretty wonderful stuff. Now, of course, this is not very sustainable. You know, we would make a huge mess if all of our docs were set up with inline components and stuff like that. So how would you recommend someone organizes their code for maybe a more production use case? Like, I'm going to have some interactive code examples and stuff, and where should I keep these?
Um, this really depends on how much advanced you do things, but I think the best way to get started is maybe to move this component to a separate file.
Mm-hmm.
There is a SRC components folder that you can use, for example,
Okay.
and you can create a component there, and then you can import it in the MDX file directly. So this way, you just have to maintain this component and use it in multiple documentations, multiple documents at once. So, and I think it's a bit cleaner because you don't want to pollute the MDX files with too many React things. So,
Okay. So now instead
the
of
idea,
this, I'm going to import Boopa Snoot. Quite possibly my best ever name.
and here we have if you want, we have an alias. You can start with at site /src, I think, /components, and so this way you can just have more stable things with not a lot of dots everywhere. So it depends of what you prefer, but I like.
I broke it.
Um,
It doesn't like my, did I miss a thing? So we're importing from React.
React is not defined. You have to import React maybe.
Oh, okay.
No, not in the MDX file. I think it's in the other file. We are not on the. I think it's You still have to import it because we don't have the auto import of React yet. So
got it. Okay, so there we go. Now we've got a slightly less chaotic MDX, interactive set of docs. Yeah, that's so nice. Like it's so slick when you can just kind of throw these things together and not have to think about it. I will absolutely now I'm in my head thinking of all the times I've made my life harder by not just grabbing Docusaurus.
Yeah, this is quite convenient. Actually, my newsletter is built on Docusaurus because I thought I didn't want to reinvent the wheel and and create something from scratch while this was working fine. So
How actually can we? Okay, so that's this week in React, right? So this is
yeah,
a Docusaurus site.
yeah.
Oh, that's slick. Very cool. Okay. What a great.
This is not a regular Docusaurus site because there are two blogs in the same site,
Mm-hmm.
and I don't have docs, so this is not the usual thing. So this is just a link to Twitter. So
Yeah, but
um,
this is clever. This is really good. So this is like a markdown page, and then this is two
yeah,
separately configured blogs.
yeah, exactly.
Nice. It's a good idea because you get all these things like search and the MDX
Yeah, I
configuration
really
and
didn't want to spend time investing in recreating everything because I know it's the devil is in the details. So
yeah.
you think it will be easy to implement your own blog, but then you want to add tags and pagination and search and localization. For example,
Mm-hmm.
for me, the very important things is that my newsletter is translated, so it's quite different from other newsletters that are only in English. I started it in French, and I think localization is important. So if you just switch the language, you have the content translated in two languages. And every week I send two emails to two different newsletter segments. So I really needed this, and I didn't want to implement things with Gatsby or Next or because I know it's complicated to to implement this. So
That's so
and
cool. Like yeah, this is just, also the fact that you do this is a lot for every week in two languages. Holy crap.
yeah, this is complicated. I struggle a bit sometimes to find time to do everything. But
Yeah, I can't imagine.
yeah,
I struggle to find enough time to do things like laundry. I don't know how people can do. Yeah, oh, I'm gonna write this 2,000 word blog post, and also I'm gonna translate it into English from French. It's like holy crap.
yeah,
I'm over here
yeah. I
like, oh
think
man,
it's
I'm
not.
lucky if I eat 2 meals a day.
Yeah, the translation I think is not the most complicated part of the newsletter,
Sure, sure, sure.
but the everything adds up, and in the end, everything takes time. So
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, I mean, this is slick. All right. So then, if I want to, I mean, just incredible how fast that happened. Okay. So then I'm going to go and I want to create a blog. So I'm going to create a new blog, and we're going to create one for today. It's now 2023. Oh my goodness. Today's the 19th, and we're going to say new boop docs. Right. This is going to be a release note. Is there anything special about a blog post, or is it kind of the same game? I know there were a couple things that I saw, like for the authors, I'm gonna need to put in my name. I'm gonna look at one of these to cheat. So we'll do. Oops, where did my blog post go? Here, and I can put this in, and we'll say host of Learn with Jason, and my URL can be jason.af links, and my image URL will be, is this the one that I use now? Let's find out. There it is. Cool. Okay, so I get that part, and then which of these things are required and which of these things are optional? I lost Sebastien there for a second. Let me get him back.
I'm here. Yeah.
Okay. All right. So I have now I've put in my own author details, and then what I was looking at was whether or not, like, of the rest of the pieces here, the slug, the title, and the tags, which things are optional and which things are required.
I think nothing is required. Maybe just the title.
Okay.
If you have the date in the file name, I think it should be enough. Yeah, because we need a date, but if you don't provide a date, maybe we default to the Git
Okay.
date. So if you don't have a good date on Git, it's not a really great fallback, but at the same time, we need a date for the blog post to order the blog post.
Gotcha.
Maybe you can try and create a blog post and.
Okay, so it automatically picked up the date, which is great. It automatically picked up the title, also great. It used my author info. What happens if I just get rid of this? It just works. It doesn't fail at all. So the only thing that I have to do to blog is check out our new Boopin' Docs. And there we go. We've now built it. So I can add one of these. The slug is here, kind of auto setup, but we can customize that. And then go back to the blog because I just broke the URL. But now it's using our custom slug. We can have a title of like. Okay, so if you override the title, it doesn't just change the sidebar, it overrides your H1. So that is interesting. So I can just get rid of that.
Yeah.
And then if I go over into here, I can copy the link address.
The front matter slug is more for the metadata of the page. And if you want, for example, you can use the markdown title. if you want, for example, to use inline code blocks and even maybe MDX inside it. So, you can't put React components inside the title, the metadata title of a page, but you can create an interactive title, maybe if you want, for your blog post. I don't know who would use that, but it's possible to do, I think.
That's kind of fun. So if I wanted to, yeah, I now
Maybe
I kind of
just
want to
try
try this.
to
So hold on, if I do
I'm not sure.
something like if I just do a
No, this won't work. You
no,
can
that
put
won't work.
this here. This is just a string, but normally the markdown title inside the body you can put bold and italic and things like that if you want. But
Oh,
I'm not
I
sure.
got you.
But actually, I think it only works for docs. I'm not sure it works for blog. So I think I ignore it because as we've seen, the front matter title overrides it. So I think it won't do anything. But if you do that for blog, I think it works because I know there are some sites. Yeah.
Okay, so that one doesn't work, but that's okay because
Yeah, this doesn't work because the blog is quite different from the docs. The
mm-hmm.
blog, you see that the content we put in the middle of the title of your blog post and the body, we put the author and the metadata, so it has to be a string somehow, I think.
That makes sense. But so if we wanted to play out here, we could theoretically make this into like this could
Yeah.
be. We'll do one click and one of these and now if we go over here, we can go in here, boop, and it works.
Yeah.
Now it does look like it causes some problems for the
Yeah.
sidebar.
If you do that, we try to stringify it because we have to put it in many other places where it can be a red component. So you have to put the title in the front matter to provide the string version of it.
Okay, and because I'm using a colon, this is there's a lot of ways to do it, but this is the one that I always default to.
Ah,
And
yeah,
now,
okay. I didn't know this one.
and there we go. Now we've got strings work in the sidebar, and we've got a little Easter egg hidden on our title.
I don't know anyone doing that, but maybe someone will find useful.
Yeah, I mean, like maximum chaos is always a good choice when we're on Learn with Jason. So let's see what else. What else do we need to do here? What else should we learn? What have we not covered yet?
So maybe I can explain how the sidebar works.
Yeah.
So there is a sidebar files. You will see that we use a single type called auto-generated. So this is what permits you to to um, to generate from the file system structure.
Mm-hmm.
But we are quite flexible. It's possible, for example, to add another documentation. You can somehow, for example, generate from a subfolder if you want. If you don't want to generate from the root, you can use another dir name and generate from a subfolder. And somehow you can create explicit sidebar slices where
Mm-hmm.
you define documents one by one that you reference by ID so that you register them to the sidebar, and some folders where you want to use the file system conventions that we use by default, where you will just have to put subfolders instead of the dir name, and it will not generate from the root, but it will generate from the subfolder that you selected.
Gotcha. So if I wanted to, let's say, pull in my custom page.
No, your custom page is a landing page, so it's not a doc. You have to put it in the
Oh,
docs
true.
folder if you want it to be a doc.
Okay, so if I want it to be a doc, I would then say like, oh, that's the blog. Where am I going? I want to be in here. Go with like a custom thing.md. Right, so we get one of those. And now this is not showing up, right? So
It should.
did something break? Oh, it didn't like something I did. I did something weird. Invalid sidebar file. These sidebar IDs do not. Yep, I made it real mad when I did that. So let's go with. I want. What did I call this?
You can add a custom thing, I think.
Okay. Are you still alive, or do I need? Okay, we're good now.
Yeah,
so
it works.
Now it's double added because we're using the auto gen, but then I'm also customizing it, and that's cool.
Yeah,
And then if I want to add something fully custom, can I? Because it looks like we've got a thing for categories.
Yeah, you can create a category if you want and put the same documentation in it. The custom thing, you can put it in the items array. For example, maybe copy the.
Okay, so I can put any doc I want from the docs folder in here, but if I wanted to make a custom category, I would do a type category, and we would say label is my favorites, and then we would do items, and then in the items we could do something like how to boop.
You can reuse the same document, a custom thing, or how to boop, or whatever you want. It's not a problem to display twice the same document in the sidebar, but I don't know. I'm not sure you want to do this, but it's possible.
Yeah. But so you can do some pretty cool things here, and like if you had, for example, like a really large doc site, one of the things that I've seen is that you'll have sections on your features, right? So you've got 15 or more product features, like major categories, each of which has their own docs and all those things, and then those might include like a getting started quick start tutorial kind of thing. And maybe what you want to do is pull out those guides into a guide section so that somebody who wants to get a rapid overview of the product can just jump through each of those guides, right? So there's lots of reasons why you would practically do this, despite me kind of making a mess over here to just prove the point. But yeah, there's definitely, like, if you wanted to change this to be like quick start guides, right? And then we can pull in our basic quick start guides. We could put this up at the top, and that could be a whole thing, right? So lots and lots of reasons why you might want to actually do something like this. It's not just me being silly. Ta-da!
And yeah. So eventually, if you want to go further on, if you have really large sites, what you can do also is maybe to separate your guides and your tutorials and things like that from your API reference. This is what we do on the Docusaurus site. And the idea is that, for example, you don't want to have everything in the same sidebar, but maybe have separate sidebars for both different things. So if you look at you can see it's not the same sidebar. So in the sidebars.js file, you can see that you can register multiple sidebars, and it's possible to have two sidebars for different parts of your sites.
Got it.
So you can create a second sidebar if you want, and maybe add your custom thing in it or another thing.
Yeah, so we can do something like this, and maybe that's where our quick start lives, is down in here. Now, how would I add this somewhere?
How would you add this somewhere? So I think it should work if you do that. So maybe you can
go over here.
Try. There is just one problem is that you have some documents that are in two sidebars now because the auto-generated generates from the root of your folder. So all the documents in the docs folder are in the first sidebar. And you also registered some of them to the second one. So there are documents that are in two sidebars. So when you browse them, Docusaurus doesn't know which sidebar you want to display. So this is a bit of a problem, and you should rather.
Okay, so
Yeah.
so to fix
So
that, can I? So let me propose this. We have the tutorial here, which has three top level things. We've got the intro, basics, and extras. If I want
yeah,
those to be on one sidebar, and then I want the how to boop and a custom thing to be on a second sidebar, I would not be able to use auto generated anymore. But can I specify the top level folder as opposed to
yeah.
so we'll
Actually,
say
you can create subfolders. For example, you can create one subfolder called guides and one subfolder called boop or something else,
okay.
and use the auto-generated sidebar for both subfolders. So each sidebar will be auto-generated from one subfolder, and actually, you can auto-generate it just means you will read this folder and try to generate automatically the sidebar items. But somehow you can use twice the same auto-generated sidebar if you want. It will just duplicate everything. You can try maybe. Just
Oh,
copy this line and paste it just under, and you will understand how it works. Yeah. So normally you see it happens somehow. It concatenates the sidebar slices together.
okay.
And if you want, you can change the dir name from which it's generated, and you will see that it generates something like that. So the idea is that you have some low-level primitives that permits you to compose the way you want to organize your site, and you can be explicit for some folders and use auto-generated for the subfolders that where this makes sense.
Got it. So how would I put so looking at kind of what we've got here where I've got the intro, the basics, the extras, I want to make two sidebars, one that is this and one that would be the how to boop and the hello. So I want to basically split these into two sidebars, and when I'm
Yeah.
in any of these docs I want this to show up. When I'm in any of these docs I want this to show up.
So what you can do is maybe create one tutorial subfolder in the docs and move everything inside,
And
and
I
one
would do
boop.
that like this.
Now you use your file system. You just create a folder inside the docs folder.
Oh,
You create a tutorial subfolder. You move the other folders inside it, and you create a boop subfolder, and you move the other things inside it.
okay.
So now you should have just two root folders, and you can use for each sidebar you will auto-generate it from the subfolder instead of from the root.
Can't
Uh,
resolve sec. Oh, I think I need to stop and
um,
restart because I changed a bunch of folder locations.
no, no, I think it's the idea of your document. It's something I don't really like in Docusaurus is that when you move a file around, the ID changes because it takes the folder as a prefix. So you have to use boop slash how to boop slash you have to add the boop slash in the sidebars.js because you have some references.
Okay, so I'm here. Couldn't find any doc with ID intro. Where is the
Yeah,
intro?
so this is no, this is not something that I'm proud of. You have to edit the configuration file of the Docusaurus because your navbar reference a document that just changed ID, so you have to add maybe boop tutorial intro, and I think it should
Okay.
work now.
Okay, so I go over here.
The error message is not very good, but
Got it. Okay, so that works. And then if I go into boops, or wait, is it just boop? It is just boop. So we'll go into just plain old boop. And it didn't.
Yeah,
Oh, do I need to set
I think there is. You can maybe create an index.md file if you want a file at that path, but otherwise you will have to boop / how to boop and not.
Okay,
Yeah,
so that
now it
that
works.
worked, but it's missing my sidebar, and that sidebar is needs to be declared in here, right? And I could do that
Yeah,
by just saying boop,
boop.
and we'll give this the boop sidebar, and now we
Yeah,
got it.
right.
Got it. Okay. No, that's slick. Like, you know, it takes a bit of doing, but nothing that we can't handle. And if I go in here and what was the position? Sidebar position 1. And now we have ourselves a little like booping thing. And if I come into the nav, I can add this.
Add the
So
link. Yeah.
we'll go to boop index, or I guess I don't even need that, right? I can just do this.
No, I think you need the.
I do need it.
I'm not sure. I don't remember all the conventions that we have, but I think you need it. Yeah.
And there we go. Now we got a new doc section that's got its own custom sidebar. We got this one. This is slick. Like, it's great. I mean, this is everything I could want. It was way easier to figure out that config change than it would have been for me to build this from scratch, right? Oh, there is a question in the chat. Does Docusaurus 2.0 is it using Vite?
No, it's using Webpack.
Okay.
Not. It's a bit complicated to change that because we have a plugin system and we have some plugins that are relying on Webpack. So if we do the change, it will be complicated for the community because they will have to update all the plugins. So this is not something that we did so far. I don't know what would be the impact for the community. I think it's possible that we will do it, but at the same time, there is a TurboPack and other competitors that are coming. So I'd like to take the time to think more about it to see which bundler is the best one.
Doc's ready. Let's. So I'm gonna push this, and then the last thing to do, and we've got just a couple seconds left to do this before I have to wrap us up, is if I want to deploy this, do I have to do anything special, or can I just go to Netlify and say deploy this site?
No, you can just go to Netlify and it should work.
All right, let's do it. I'm gonna deploy a new site. We're going to import an existing project. Go to GitHub. Here we go. And go to my Learn with JSON here. Search for Docusaurus. Grab this one. Just going to hit the deploy button and we'll see how it goes.
It should be fine, I think.
And then I think the other thing I want to do while we're waiting for that is I'm going to change the site name while I'm remembering to Docusaurus 2. Okay, and we can go back to our deploys. It's building, doing all the things that we want it to do. And while we're waiting for that to build, I'm going to ask you, where else should somebody go if they want to go further with Docusaurus?
I think you can just read the documentation and maybe you take the tutorial that is in the initial template. There are some things that we didn't cover, like versioning and internationalization, if you want to understand how this works. And if you want to get some help, we have a very active Discord server where people are quite helpful. So if you are locked on a specific problem, you can always ask there if you need help, and someone will likely answer. Otherwise, you can ask your question on GitHub if nobody is able to answer on Discord, because unfortunately I don't have a lot of time to participate there. So
Sure.
I try to delegate a bit the support for the community, and if nobody is able to answer, I try to unlock the users on GitHub.
Where does somebody go to get into the Discord community?
I think, yeah, there should be a link in the footer also.
Here. All right, so head over to the Discord, get into the GitHub, and get out there and build some great stuff. Let's go see if my site built.
Oh, no.
Oh, we found broken links.
Yeah.
You know why we found broken links? My blog links to the docs, and I moved. We moved all those. So yeah, that's okay. That's an expected bug. I'll fix that after we get offline, so that the blog will deploy. But I mean, this is actually great, because I would have never known that, and we would have just had broken links in the site. So that's a really helpful feature. Yeah. Wonderful. All right. So, Sebastien, anywhere else that people should go if they want to keep up with you? I'm going to drop another link to your Twitter here.
Yeah, I think Twitter is fine, or you can subscribe to my newsletter if you are into React, and also on Docusaurus on the repo.
Excellent. All right, y'all. Well, with that, we are going to call this one, I think, a success, despite my technical issues with the overlays. This episode, like every episode, has been live captioned. Thank you so much to White Coat Captioning and Ashley, who's been doing that all day. That's made possible through the support of our sponsors, Netlify, NX, New Relic, Pluralsight, all kicking in to make the show more accessible to more people, which I very, very much appreciate. We got a lot of good stuff coming up on the show. I am streaming solo on Tuesdays now, so make sure you tune in for that. Tuesdays at 9 a.m. Pacific. And then on Thursday, we're going to have Jessica Sachs coming on to teach us about Faker.js and component-driven dev. We've got all sorts of good things on the schedule. Make sure you like, subscribe, whatever it is that you want to do. There's a newsletter up here on this tips and insights if you want to get it that way. So many ways that you can be involved with Learn with Jason. Make sure you don't miss an episode, because we've got a whole lot of good stuff coming up. Sebastien, thank you again for taking some time out today and teaching us. Chat, as always, thank you for hanging out. We're going to go find somebody to raid, and we'll see you all next time.
Thank you.